Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Harry, and I'm recording from Bufnagle Studios, Indianapolis, here alongside Rafe. How are you?
Hey, I'm great because it's a great day to be doing a podcast with you. And it is another great day because we have great listeners that have made us a global top 10% podcast. As usual, you can reach us at bufnagle.com. Remember, share the love, share the buff, give us a 5-star review, give us hit the smiley stars, subscribe, like, do those things. They matter. Okay. You definitely should be subscribed. It takes no time at all. I'll wait. You just hit the pause button, go hit subscribe, and then it doesn't cost you anything. It'll just show up automatically and your life will be better because my life is better. So remember, tell a friend to listen and you will get a free episode. And you can always hit the buy me a coffee button there in the show notes and get a coffee sent to me or an ice cream cone
or a cookie or something.
Cookie, yeah. Maybe a ham sandwich or something. That would be a great thing. So, all right, Harry is here in the studio because it is a special family event took place over the last couple days, and we were wrapping that up today, and we decided we will be in the studio today. So let's not waste that opportunity.
Yep.
Let's get a recording done. So I want to talk today. All right. So here's the question. So someone asked me, said, do you view time linearly or sequentially? Or linearly and sequentially, or do you view it cyclically? And I thought back to immediately that spurred a thought in my head from my comparative religions class back in whenever that was in college, that there's a lot of Eastern philosophy in these concepts of cycles of things happening like this. The whole reincarnation thing is a big cyclic issue, and that shows up a lot in the East. But in the West, there's pretty much there was a beginning and it started, and there will be an end, and that's that. So I tend to live in this on the linear world, but then they told me you can make a decision to think in a cyclical term, and then I realized that I do like cycles and seasons, like when I was in school, semesters and years and classes were all cyclic, right? You'd start a new semester and there'd be a class, and every 3 weeks there'd be a test, and then at the end there's a midterm halfway through, and then the weeks make up these blocks that make up a test cycle, and the test cycles go together to make a midterm cycle, and midterms they make right. So you have these cycles and cycles and cycles, and I missed that when I got out of school.
I think it's routined.
Yeah, well,
it's routined and scheduled, right? It's not necessarily that there is a beginning or an end, and it's not necessarily that there is a circle that always happens.
Right.
It's that you are confined within, if we're going to use a linear model, where you start from point A to go to point B, but along that path, you have these little loops.
Yeah.
As you go along.
Yeah, little cycles and break loops, and those semesters go together to make calendar years or academic years, and the academic years those are pieces of an actual calendar year, and the calendar years make like a whole degree program. And I lived my whole life that way up until I graduated from grad school, which was in my late 20s.
And then what happened?
And then I got a job, and it was go to work and come home, go to work and come home, go to work and come home. And if you're lucky, you get vacation days, and you stop seeing the world so cyclically. I think you stop seeing those repeating patterns. But like the person told me, you can recognize the natural sequences that are out there, and you can use them. Mm-hmm. So like the sun gets up in the morning in the east and sets in the west, and there's a cycle, and that one happens every day.
Yep.
But the place where it rises, that slowly changes over the course of the year. It starts depending when you start your calendar year, starts directly east, goes to the south, goes back to the east, well, I mean, it goes to the south edge of the east,
Yep.
and then it goes back to the straight east, and then it goes to the north edge of east, and it goes right. So you have those kinds of cycles, and then you have you have
Seasonal
seasons.
cycles.
You have seasons, right? So there are I think the point was this: is that if you just see time as this straight linear thing where you start as you get born, and then you graduate from whatever school you are, then you get a job, and then you retire, and then you die, then your focus misses, I guess I'll call it, to sound a little sappy, the rhythms and seasons of your life, right? But there are things in there but those are the things that make you human. Are those things? Are those cycles and those rhythms that are in the seasons? And it starts as early as minute as the daily cycle. The sun comes up in the east every day, sets in the west every day. And if you tap into those cycles, they said you can get you can live a fuller life, not focused on this end, but focused on the now.
You focus on the now, and then you focus on these little chunks. You don't have to think of it as, well, I did this portion of my life, and now I do this portion of my life, and I do this portion, and now I'm done.
Right.
You get to focus on these things that you get to refine every single day, or every single spring, or every single year, and you kind of get a reset as you go along. And I think that's actually most evident in your cycle of grandparenthood. Right? You were a new dad 32 years ago.
Yes, it was.
And now you are a new grandfather as of 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's not like you are outside of what being a dad was like.
Right.
Because you still remember that. So you've moved past it. Sure, you've moved past it, and you're kind of linearly away from it. But you kind of get to tap back into it in this cycle, but from a different angle.
Yeah. The valuable things out there are the seasons, because they define, like, think about what your life is. And I said this a couple weeks ago when we talked about how bleak, when we were talking about bleak winter,
Mm-hmm.
and how bleak the winter would be without Christmas. In fact, how the whole year is bleak without that. And you get to these seasons, I think the middle, I'll call it the medieval mind was much more attuned to the seasonal cyclic nature of life, right? There were, when you're an agrarian society, things revolve around when can you plant and when can you harvest, and when the animals come into, when they have their young, and when do you harvest, and when you put up for winter, and those sorts of things. And but you're right, and those things are always going on underneath, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
right? You got spring, summer, winter, fall. Fall, what's it called? Spring, summer, fall, winter. Spring, summer, fall, winter.
Spring, summer, winter, fall.
That's another thing we're switching, is we're going to change the order. So spring, summer, fall, winter. Those are still going on in the background. And I thought of this because we're having a spat of cold weather, a chunk. We're having some cold weather right now. and it occurred to me that what makes, how do I say this? We're having this cold weather, and what that means is I need to adjust my behavior to match the seasons. Meaning, I can't behave the same way in the winter that I do in the summer.
Okay.
All right, but our modern lifestyle tells us that it should be the same. We just set the furnace to whatever temperature we want it to be. And now it feels just like it does. Now January feels just like October, feels just like June, because the heat's controlled for us. Our alarm clocks go on and off at the same time every day. But I think we should be more attuned to the season, because the sun is coming up. Well, now it's starting to get up a little bit late, a little bit earlier every day. But at the winter solstice, the days are very short. So we should be doing things that are attuned to that. We should have bigger blankets on the bed.
Yeah.
We should have, it's going to get colder at night. We're going to have to remember to bring firewood in the night before. And our daily routine should be altered to match where we are in the bigger cycle. And what our modern lifestyle takes from us is with the wonderful conveniences that we have, it takes from us the recognition of the cyclic nature that we're living in.
So do you think that a regular day-to-day life now is too mundane and it is too similar to everything else throughout the year and throughout decades?
I think what I think is that it has taken from us. I mean, there's some great things. Don't get me wrong. I'm not ripping on modernity. You know, like I said, I don't want to be a Luddite, and I do like our computers and I like our internetings, and I like my air conditioner in the summer, and I like my thermostat heater thing in the winter. But if we don't adjust how we're living for the things around us, then we have separated ourselves from our nature.
Well, and then I think that also goes back to you separate yourself from nature.
Right.
And your favorite phrase is nature cannot be fooled.
Nature, actually, okay. So that comes from a Feynman quote, right? I mean,
Right.
he talked about that with the shuttle, the Challenger blowing up, and he said, I think the statement was, when it comes to doing science or engineering, reality must take precedence over public relations because nature cannot be fooled. But I like to change that verb. I like to say nature will not be fooled. I mean, it does what it does. Reality is what reality is. And if you try to ignore that, you will eventually get burned. It will catch up to you. And that's a fundamental premise there is you have to understand. Well, and so this comes to a further point, which is you have to understand what's happening behind the scenes if you seek to have any control over what's happening, which leads to the next issue is what if you don't understand? Okay. And that is a thing that I have discovered as I'm getting older. I'm finding, Harry, that there are more and more things every day that I do not understand. And I thought if anybody's been listening over the last several weeks, I thought it would be the opposite of that. That as I got older, there would be fewer and fewer things that I don't understand, and I would get wisdom, and that would be great. But it seems to me, as time goes on, I understand fewer and fewer things.
Well, I think that's only because your perception of what you know or the perception of the topics that you know increases.
Okay.
So if you think that if the only things that you know when you're in grade school are reading, writing, and arithmetic,
right,
and there's no such thing as physics or engineering or statistics or wisdom or theology or any of these other things that we've talked about, well, that because it doesn't exist, if you only know 3 out of your 3 things, well, shoot, like when you get older, those are the only things you need to know. So you'll understand it really well. And now you have all of these other topics that you learn about, and you suddenly understand, I know nothing about a particular topic, which means there's multiple other topics that you don't know anything about.
Right.
Therefore, I know nothing.
Right. And it's getting worse. And talk to your mother about this, because she will tell you that I spend a lot of time asking about things that don't have answers now. Okay, which is more than I used to, because I used to ask those kinds of questions and then I'd research, look it up, and find out the answer. But now there are things I don't have the answers to them. I don't have the answers, and it took me a long time to realize why that was driving me so nuts. And the answer is that I liked to have the answers because that meant I understood, and if I understood, I could control. And it's all about control. I think it's all about control, and we seek to have this utter control over our lives. So like for example, when the furnace fails to light in the heart of bleak midwinter, and it is cold outside, and you are cold and you want to make the house warm, you really want to understand how that furnace works,
Mm-hmm.
so you can get it lit. And if you can't figure that out, you can't get the fire in there. But there are other things. There are deeper things. Like why do you have the yearnings that you have in your life? What the things that you want, the things that you desire? Why are they there? And if you can't figure out why they're there, then you have difficulty controlling them or using them or directing them in the right way. And those are things that sounds pretty obvious, but it took me a long time to get there. That was the thing that was really driving me batty, was that I can't understand these things, and therefore I can't control them. Nature to be commanded must be obeyed. Right? And I have to understand how fire works before I can make sure the furnace runs or the fireplace goes. And and I have to understand how electronic ignition works in the stove to make my gas stove turn on so I can make hot cocoa. And I can understand those things. But when something goes wrong, if I don't understand it, I can't control it.
Right.
And I have to, in order to command it, I must obey it. And if I don't know what it's doing, I can't obey.
So what does this have to do with time and how you
how you view time? Okay, so here's see, this is why you are here.
Otherwise, you would just you got me monologuing.
Yeah. Wait a minute. So because I view, or have been viewing, or I'm trying to not view as much anymore, this world as linear in time. The only thing out there that really matters is that endpoint. Right? I mean, if sure. Because that's the one that's coming up. There may be some other things in between, but that's what's that quote I always say from To His Coy Mistress? At my back, I always hear time's winged chariot hurrying near.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the quote. That's the endpoint. And what that does is, so I have to understand what's happening, because I want to, I would like to will that point very far into the future. Right? That's what we all seek to do is to
delay the inevitable.
We want to or remove the inevitable. I mean, that's the Kobayashi Maru, right? That's the Star Trek thing, right? That where Captain Kirk reprogrammed the game you could not win. He made it so you can win it.
Mm-hmm.
And we would love to do that. And I have that thought in my head that that's what I'd like to do. But at my back, I always hear time's winged chariot hurrying near, and that means it is coming. And there's no way to rewrite that code. That one will not happen. So when you're focused on that, what you sense a loss of control, and you sense that, and then that leads to despair, and it's a bad thing because you're focused on that endpoint and you're not seeing what's happening now. But what we need to do is, I think the medieval mind, the pre-modern mind, was more focused on the cycles. The sun comes up in the east and sets in the west. Every Sunday you hear the special bells ring. That means you go to church, and that spring follows winter, and summer follows spring, and fall follows summer, and winter follows, right? So those cycles are coming. When the river is going to flood or it's not going to flood, and you didn't really know why those things happened, but you knew that they did happen. And what that meant is you were free to live in the now. And that was a big. It was an epiphany, a sudden realization of great truth, right? There was an epiphany that happened, on or about the time of Epiphany. And it was eye-opening to me that my lament at my aging was fundamentally a focus on loss of control.
Well, I'm sure there's not only the loss of control of trying to find that endpoint, but also loss of control as you get older. There's things you just can't control.
Right.
You'll grow weaker. Your mind might go. Your body's going to go, and now you really have no control.
Right. It is coming, but you do have. But you don't have any control over that. But you do have control of how you approach the seasonality that is there, because things are changing. Right. In the summer, you don't wear the sweater. Right. We used to do this thing. I remember this as a kid. We used to switch. I don't remember what day it was. We used to switch the blankets out, right? We would have a winter blanket and a summer blanket. And I remember my mom saying things like, well, we're going to put on the spring blankets now. And we would take the old ones, we'd fold them up and we'd put them away. And the summer ones or the spring ones would come out. We'd put those on the bed. And I know now people that live in the same temperature year round. And I go to these hotels, Harry, and it is so, they have these massive comforters in places like, I'll go to Dallas,
Tampa.
Yeah. And they have comforters on the bed that my grandmother in Minnesota in 1940 would have killed for, because they would keep her warm at night. And these are in Tampa now. And you have a knob on the wall that you can slide it up or you can slide it down. And everybody slides it way down to like 60 degrees Fahrenheit, because the blankets are so heavy that if you don't do that, then you melt.
It just makes the whole problem way worse.
Right. And so it seems to me that there should be a better focus on following, nature to be commanded must be obeyed. We have to obey the nature. Instead of trying to rewrite it's like, you know what? I'm just going to set my thermostat for whatever. Now, I'm not going to get rid of my air conditioning this summer because it does get hot in here and it's not comfortable.
Sure.
right? But I don't set my air conditioner to make it the same temperature on nights in August that naturally occur as nights in February. Right, in February, let it get very cool in the house. You know that you're hanging out here. We let it get very cool at night, and then during the day, we turn on the furnace. We get it going. We turn the fire on in the fireplace. We do that kind of thing, and we don't turn the fire on. We make the fire in there with real logs, but you ought to behave different in the summer than you do in the winter. You ought to eat different fruits and vegetables in the summer than you do in the winter, or in the fall, or in the spring. Your clothes ought to change depending upon what time of the year it is. And I think we lose track of that when these two things work, when they conspire. This idea that it's a linear line, it's a linear timeline that gets you only toward the end, and that you have to control it. I think you get free. You become free when you let go. When you let go and follow the cycles.
I would almost say you end up following the rules.
Yes.
Follow the rules. Winter is cold.
So
I'll put on some more clothes.
I'll put on more clothes. And that there's this adage that the environmental guys say, and the environmental guys and the classic architecture guys are aligned on this idea of don't heat the space, heat the person. Right. So, in the winter, it's cold. Yeah. Put on a sweater. Right. That doesn't mean you should be sitting around like Bob Cratchit without any coal, but to heat your whole house to a balmy 75 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter, when in the summer you're cooling it to 72 or 68. Some people cool their homes to 68 in the summer. And I know people that they dress the same in the winter as they do in the summer because they just adjust the thermostat. And it seems to me like it'd be easier if we didn't fight those things as much.
Probably cheaper too.
I think it's cheaper. Those people who like the environment thing, they say it's better for the environment. But I think it removes a lot of stress. It removes stress.
Well, it's the same thing as, if your mother's cold, what do you do?
If your mother's cold, then you put on a sweater.
Then
because she makes you put on a sweater. Right. The sweater is what you put on when your mom gets cold. And it is I think we need to obey nature a little bit more, I think is the thing. Stop trying to control it, because you can't control it, right? Mm-hmm. We find that out when the big fires come roaring through, when the floods come through, when the snow comes through. You can't control the snow. It will come. You cannot control the fire. You can try to keep it at bay, but it will win, right? What did Feynman say when it comes to science and engineering? That reality has to take precedent over public relations, because nature will not be fooled. You can't fight that forever. So concede.
Yeah, and kind of know where you fit in.
Yeah, know where you
concede and put on a sweater.
Well, but that takes back to the first thing, because as you get older, you have to concede that. And we had a talk long ago. You asked, so what's it like getting old? You asked me that I was like 50 or 45 or something like that. Can you still? You were asking me how do you deal with the fact that you get old and you want to do the things you used to do? And the answer is, well, I can't do them anymore, so I don't. Right? If I would try to go play basketball with you and Zach right now, I'd be able to do it for a little bit, but tomorrow I'd be in so much pain that it would be not worth it. So what do old people do? They don't play. They concede that, and they become general managers or coaches, right? Or something like that. Tom Brady, you know what? Tom Brady retired. Father Time is undefeated, as they say.
That's right.
And he will get you. And it's just, you have to, the sad things are when people lose when they lose a step and they don't see it and everybody else does. You guys just got to concede it. And some of that is going gracefully into old age. Hmm. So I think you see that all the time in Hollywood. These poor ladies their looks are their whole world, and they're striving to still get the parts of a 30-year-old, and they're 62, 70, and then they get Botoxed up and surgeryized, and it's not any fun. So I've come to a.
What's your consensus and your realization?
My feeling here, my conclusion here is that we need to concede that. concede it, give up the desire for control, which is a really hard thing for a lot of us. At least half of us in this room, it's a very hard thing. At least half of us it is.
Yep.
And it's okay. It's okay to not know, which is really hard. I'm actually, it sounds like I'm telling the listeners that, but I'm really telling myself that. It's okay to not know. Sometimes, and then when you don't know, I mean, I love knowing. I love knowing why the Northern Lights are the Northern Lights.
Mm-hmm.
But for millennia, people enjoyed them for their spectacle and for their wonder. And sometimes if you take, now Feynman has a thing to say about this too. Sometimes when you know too much, you can take the splendor out of it. You say, well, it's just a consequence of some photons falling through some, the electrons are going through here and they're getting ionized, and the electrons fall from one shell to the next and produces this light, and that kind of some people say that takes the wonder out. Other people say, well, now I'm more wonderized by knowing, but I see what I see, and then I know what I know. So for the things that I do know, like I see miraculous things happen. I see water boiling. To me, that's an incredible thing to see on the stove. And the fact that I know, or at least have a model for what's happening on the molecular level, that's even more wonderful. So if you do know, use the knowledge to increase your splendor. And if you don't know, enjoy the splendor.
Not to decrease the spectacle.
Yeah.
And especially don't ruin it for other people.
Well, right. And our friend Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's one of those, anybody who says, well, actually, and then they tell you why you should not be impressed with, I don't know, the fact that a baby kangaroo is born about the size of a peanut or whatever it is, and then climbs out and jumps in the pouch and lives there for however. I mean, that's a miraculous thing. How jellyfish work, that's a miraculous thing. There's all of these things. And there's an episode we have about to me, I think about granite countertops.
Yep.
Right. And how those rocks were formed, and they were constructed there in the bowels of the earth billions of years ago. Like it's a beautiful countertop, and knowledge of where it came from should only enhance it. If you're getting knowledge and it's ruining your splendor, then you're doing it wrong. So as I'm getting older, I should do a couple things. Accept the things I don't know. Find out more if you can, but don't let not knowing ruin your day. And you know what?
Sure. Yep.
Right now it's January. We're recording this in January. Mm-hmm. February is next. I know that's coming. And then comes spring, like the bulb, the buds on the tree.
And the daffodils are going to come up with Bob.
They're going to pop up, and they've been doing that for millennia. And if I disappear from the scene, they will keep going. The sun will come up, the sun will come down, the planets will go around, the eclipses will come. All of that wonderful stuff will continue to happen, and it'll still be miraculous. And it doesn't do me any good to worry. Do not worry about those things, right? And I forget where it is. It's in one of the Gospels. It's like, did you see the sparrows of the fields? Do they worry about that? They don't worry about those things. Don't worry about those things. Set things up, let it go. If it's really a problem, then change it. But don't worry about these things, and don't get obsessed with. Don't be obsessed with time's winged chariot. Yes, it's hurrying near, and it'll get here.
It'll get here when it gets here.
When it gets here, that's right. And I guess that's the thing I was thinking about is time. Do you view time linearly or seasonally, and then how does it affect your overall perception? Use the seasons. I think the seasons are one of the greatest things we have. And you may not even have seasons where you live. Maybe you live near the tropics and things are generally, but you know what? You get different winds and you get different rain patterns, and the stars are in different positions, and you can learn to see and to view and be part of the cyclic nature that you live in. And when you get out of your air-conditioned house and out into the world, it's a good thing. Your sister told me yesterday, she said that she was reading somebody that said, there is no such thing as a bad weather day. It's just that you have the wrong clothes.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to go for the walk, then go for the walk. If it's raining, then it's raining. If it's snowing, it's snowing. If it's not, it's not. And some days are beautiful and some days are not quite as beautiful.
Well, it's still the same thing, right? You cannot fool nature. You can't stop the rain.
Right.
But you can deal with it.
You can deal with it. And you can choose how you deal with it, right? You can say, I'm going to be angry and I'm going to be hostile and I'm going to be despair, or I'm going to enjoy what I see. And there are people out there that love walking in the rain. And I love walking in the rain. but not when I'm not properly dressed.
Right.
Right. I'm not gonna. I want to have my rain jacket and some boots to keep my feet relatively dry, and then it's great. So, and times winged chariot will catch me, and then that will be that. But until then, I'm going to live this run out the days in the way that is in a manner consistent with the way I was created. So
Yes.
that's what I think.
Well, good. I think that's excellent advice for all of the listeners and for me and for yourself.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
So
you'll have to
I will thank me later. Yes. there are cookies and ice cream left over from yesterday. So
there you go. All right. Well, in the meantime, we remind all the listeners to seek the good, live virtuously, and flourish, and enjoy the adventure of life. It's going to be a great day.